Good evening and welcome to the earnings review, your tidbits into company financials and operational insights. Thank you for joining us as we broadcast from Hampton Studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. I'm Ibn Mabunda, yo money man. On the show, we engage top echelon executives to get you up to speed with first-hand information. We also feature competent market analysts just to ensure you are furnished with comprehensive market analysis. Tonight, we focus on SEEDCO International, a listed agro-invested firm on the Botswana Stock Exchange as well as the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. Now, SEEDCO International is a spin-off and a subsidiary of SEEDCO Limited. SEEDCO International is listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange as well as becoming the first firm to list on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange in the year 2020. SEEDCO Limited is a leading producer and marketer of certified crop seeds in Africa, supplying hybrid maize seed to commercial farmers as well as wheat, soybean, barley, sorghum and groundnut seed across the continent. Let's have a quick look at the firm's timeline. Born as the Seed Maize Association in 1940, concurrently the Crop Seeds Association was also formed in the year 1957. These two merged in the year 1983 to form the Seed Corporation. In the year 1991, the Kadoma Research Station was acquired, and in 1991, the Staplefold facility was opened. In 1996, the firm was floated on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. 1998, SEEDCO Zambia was established before the acquisition of CEMOC Mozambique in the year 1997. Fast forward to the year 2000, SEEDCO International Botswana was then established. Moving right on to the year 2000, SEEDCO Malawi was established, and in 2004, Kenya was established there as far as SEEDCO International, as far as SEEDCO is concerned. 2006 would mark the acquisition of the cotton company, and in 2015 this firm then concluded a partnership with the Lima Grain, and in 2010 Tanzania SBU was established. In the year 2018, this would mark the unbundling of SEEDCO International, and of course, as I alluded to earlier, SEEDCO International is listed on two stock exchanges, which is the recently formed Victoria Falls Stock Exchange as well as the Botswana Stock Exchange. To have a quick look at the operations of the group as well as for SEEDCO International, the group has operations in 10 African countries, while also it distributes to an additional 5 African countries, bringing the tally to 15 African countries. SEEDCO Limited, the group, operates through associates as well as subsidiaries, including SEEDCO International, in which it owns a 27% stake. And as I mentioned earlier, SEEDCO International is listed on the VFX and the BSE. Now, a vital development where the group is concerned, in late 2020, SEEDCO International offered to acquire a 95% shareholding in the parent SEEDCO Limited in a consolidation exercise. On the cards were intentions to then delist SEEDCO Limited, the parent, from the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. SEEDCO Limited shareholders voted in support of the notion subject to regulatory approval. However, the deal did not sail through after disapproval by the relevant authorities. Effectively, the parent SEEDCO Limited is still listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and SEEDCO International, the subsidiary, is still listed on the VFX as well as the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. This concludes the Halaju section of our show. In just a moment, we'll get into a results presentation for the SEEDCO International as well as a conversation where the operations are concerned with an equity access investment analyst. Don't go anywhere. And now joining us for a conversation where the operations of SEEDCO International is concerned is the Equity Access Chief Analyst, Respect Kwenzi. Respect, good evening and thank you for joining us on the earnings review.
Thank you, Eben. Likewise, it's always my pleasure.
Fantastic. Now, just before we get into the nitty-gritties of their most recent performance, let's get into some of the highlights from the analyst briefing as the Chief Financial Officer, John, gives us that breakdown. Let's take a listen.
As you can see, our revenue growth was driven largely by volume increases in almost a couple of markets, with Malawi and Nigeria posting almost 100% revenue growth compared with the same period last year, while in Kenya, the revenue was 46% higher than last year. We also had significant growth in DRC, Mozambique, and the CCU, mainly Botswana market. So on the revenue, the main driver was largely the volume growth. The price increases that we effected were not enough to cancel off the currency devaluations. So the main increase came from the volumes. So just going on to the various markets to just see how the revenue performed. Starting off with the CCU, the main increase there is coming from Mozambique, which had a good revenue growth there compared with prior year. Zambia and DRC, revenue increasing from 26 million last year to 28.7 million this year. It's largely because of the demand that is coming from DRC there. Malawi, sales going up by almost 100%. This was largely because of the huge government inputs program in that country. Tanzania, marginal growth from 16.6 million last year to 17.7 million this current year. While in Kenya, increased demand for both local and exports in that market increased the revenue from 8.5 million last year to 12.4 million this year. Nigeria, revenue doubling up from 1.1 million last year to 2.1 million this year. So it's largely because of good support from institutional sales, which were funded by the central bank in that country. Revenue by crop, you will see that our revenue is largely coming from maize, which increased from 62 million last year to 75.8 million this year. We also had good performance from soybeans, from 3.7 million last year to 6.7 this year, while the other crops increased from 2.5 to 4.9. So maize still remains a significant contributor to our revenues. There was no significant change on the gross margins. There was just a marginal increase of 0.4% to 49.4% gross margin. Other income, there was a big decrease compared with prior year. Prior year was 6 million, this year was almost 2 million, largely because we didn't have any exchange gains coming onto the currencies, particularly on the USD assets in Zambia. So the quality of our earnings this year significantly improved. Like I said, on expenses, small increase on expenses, 4% compared with prior year. Right, so on the joint ventures and associates, SEEDCO West Africa, that's Ghana mainly, the business broke even there. On the Prime SEEDCO International, this is mainly the vegetable business, revenues increasing by almost 32%, from 3.9 million last year to 5 million this year. So the loss on this development business, the vegetable business, decreased from almost 500,000 last year to just 0.16 million this year. AgriSynergy South Africa, it's a new business. It's posted our share of that loss is almost 0.15 million. So overall, the JVs and associates, they improved in performance. Loss last year of 0.5 million, this year was 0.3 million. Our finance costs, rate concessions by banks supported by accommodative monetary policies in the wake of COVID-19. We've had some concessions from the banks, particularly on the rates. Also improved cash generation, particularly in the second half of the financial year, reduced our finance costs from 2.9 million last year to 2.5 million this year. The main item on that balance is the PPE, increasing from 36 million last year to almost 40 million this year, largely because of additional investment that we did in our planted equipment in Nigeria and also on our own farm production facilities in Zambia, in addition to the revaluations that were done this year. The other item on the balance sheet there, it's the receivables. Receivables increased from 52 million last year to 58 million this year. Included in these receivables are related party balances. This year, included in the 58 million receivables is 17 million on related parties. This is largely SEEDCO Limited, which owed 10 million, which was paid off just after year end. The other balances are from Prime SEEDCO International and also the South African JV. Otherwise, on trade and pure trade receivables, they remained at 40 million. Last year it was 40, this year it was 41, despite increased revenue, mainly because of the improved collections in the various markets. So on the trade receivables, just to highlight on the governments, they still owe us about 12 million. That is included in the 41 million trade and pure trade receivables. And this is largely owed by Zambia government, which owed us 4.4 million, Botswana, almost 3 million, and SEMOC 1.8 million. And all these, we believe they are collectible. And then moving on to the other side of the balance sheet, that is equities and liabilities on our borrowings. Our borrowings decreased from 39 million last financial year to 32 million this year. And this is largely owed by our main bankers in Botswana, ABSA and Standard Bank, all at around 3.7% interest. And the other are onshore borrowings at about 5.5% interest rate. Then moving on to the cash flows, abridged cash flows, you will see the operating cash flows improved significantly from a negative 5.2 million last year to a positive 13.2 million this year. This has been driven largely by improved profitability as well as improved collections on our trade data.
Equity Live presents the complete online interactive presentation solution. Hosting AGMs, media and analyst briefings has never been this simple, efficient and affordable. Communicate globally through a combination of high-definition video and your prepared multimedia presentation from any location of your choice. Interact with your invited participants from all over the world in question and answer sessions and voting sessions in real time on our safe, secure and affordable platform. Contact Equity Live for a free customized demonstration. Equity Live, real-time presentation solutions.
That day, of course, being a breakdown of the performance of the year ended 31 March 2021. And respect just some quick details there. The revenue there scaling 26.2% to 88.5 million United States dollars. The EBITDA scaling 21% to 20.7 million United States dollars. What is your assessment of their particular performance?
Thanks, Eben. So I think when you look at the past financial year for SEEDCO International, it has been quite unique. Why? Because we're coming from a background where you have got the best agricultural season or rainy season to say which allowed for most of the markets to enjoy good yields. So looking at most of Southern Africa, we experienced really some good rainfall, and most of the countries which SEEDCO International has presence actually realized some increased volumes performance. So when you have got good rains, you also expect that this moves on to give you some seed sales also scale up. So I think what we are seeing in terms of this performance mirrors much of Southern Africa in terms of the good harvest that they enjoyed coming from the good rains that also ensued. But of course, we've got other volatilities which we experienced in terms of some of these markets. When you look at Zambia, currency depreciation, DRC, there are also issues there to do with economic stability. Then you would also talk of Botswana, the impact of COVID-19, and also the impact of a depreciation in terms of exports the decline in exports of diamonds and so forth. So I think the myriad of challenges which is always characterized by these whole of emerging markets, and therefore it obviously weighs, especially when you look at the net adjusted earnings maybe in a constant currency such as the US dollar. We saw the US dollar climb in that given year. I mean, when you look at the aspect of the whole economy under COVID-19 and what happens to gold relative to the USD in such circumstances. So I think it's been a combination of factors, but broadly we saw performance going up against the movement in terms of a better agric season.
And of course, the bottom line there nearly doubled from $6 million to just $11.1 million over that particular year. Now, some of the key developments that John alluded to as also part of that results presentation was the fact that the firm did benefit from a series of initiatives across the region. Perhaps to cite how in Malawi there was a government program there where there was increased demand for their seed, and in fact they did actually allude to the fact that they fell short in terms of meeting the increasing demand for their products. Can you speak to us where that is concerned?
I think when you look at SEEDCO in terms of its history, much of the demand for the seed sales always comes from institutions such as government. Governments in Africa, they undertake these massive support programs for their agricultural sectors, and therefore they have been procuring much of their seed, much of the seed that SEEDCO has been pushing. It's also a similar strategy that has been moved in Zimbabwe. It has been moved as well in Zambia and also in Malawi. So it's a trend. It's a common trend. But I think at the bottom of this is what you're seeing in terms of the rainy season. If you don't have a good rainy season, obviously you wouldn't see that demand swelling to the levels that we saw in the prior year. So I think we are going to continue to see that trend in most of these key markets where government comes in, ensures food sufficiency. I'm sure you would know that one of the SDG goals of 2030 is that we should eradicate poverty, and therefore governments are seized in trying to ensure that there's food sufficiency. And for most of these African countries, their economies are largely backed by agriculture. So you have to ensure food sufficiency. You also have to leverage the land and the good climate, and therefore supporting agriculture is quite pivotal in most of these economies, including some of the poor countries such as Malawi. And so this strategy is likely to go on into the foreseeable future.
And of course, maize there remains a key value driver for the group, whose seed volumes actually increased by 25%, 24.7% to be precise, over that particular period in question. And of course, there have been several developments that we did allude to. Now, the executive also did make reference to the fact that they are making an entrance into the Ethiopian market. Can you speak to us in terms of the potential that perhaps that market would present? I think we're speaking of an economy that is in the top 3 of Africa's most populous country.
Yeah, so I think that's a very, very interesting metric. You are looking at the size of the market, and you're looking at one of the largest countries by population in the whole world. It actually features at the top if not the top 10, maybe at number 12 thereabout. And then the good thing about Ethiopia that it's beginning to emerge as a potential, as a country with significant potential for economic growth. You would talk of a recent liberalization of the telecom sector. You would also talk about the dam that was constructed recently, and you know, the downstream effects of all those relaxations in terms of the economy and so forth. It would result in a significant drive in terms of economic growth. And I think when you also look at the current government, they've ensured that there is largely peace within that nation, and that also is a foundation for economic stability and economic growth. So I think the penetration or the entrance of SEEDCO into that market is quite pivotal. Yes, they're still in the early stages and they're still doing trials and so forth, and you're still in an early development stage, so you cannot really tell the level which you might realize success. But equally, the numbers in terms of the economic strata, when you look at poverty levels and so forth, there's still high levels of poverty in Ethiopia, and whenever there's poverty, there's always room to drive in terms of eradication of poverty, just driving the agricultural sector produce. And maize is one of the biggest crop in Africa, is likely to be at the center of this transition. So I expect SEEDCO to succeed in that market into the foreseeable future.
As we near a roundup, can you speak to us with regards to the listing of the firm? Of course, it's listed on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, having been the first firm to list there, as well as on the Botswana Stock Exchange. Can you speak to us with regards to the movement where that particular market is concerned, and as far as generating value for SEEDCO International?
SEEDCO became the first company to list on the VFX late last year, I think October to be specific, and it remains the single listed firm on that bourse for the next at least 8 months. We saw recently Padinga coming also on that same bourse. But if I would like to say, at the point where it migrated from its secondary listing on the ZSE to the VFX, it was trading at about 18 cents thereabout. I think when you compare that to the BSE price, it was almost about 22 cents thereabout. So its listing price on the VFX was quite lower. You know, it was discounted to that of the BSE. Fast forward to today, it's trading at about 25 cents. You know, I think the argument that I've always put out there is that when you look at 25 US dollar cents in the context of Zimbabwe, it may not be the equivalent of a similar amount on the BSE. Why? Because of the rigidity in terms of moving money, the times that are also involved in terms of moving that money. RBZ has a current backlog of over 200 billion in terms of remittances and so forth, and so money that needs to go out there, importers' money and so forth. So I think what this just shows is that there is a big discount in terms of listings that are in Zimbabwe. So if you are looking at a company that has been invested on the VFX, the general idea is that people who invest on the stock market here, they discount significantly any companies that are listed here compared to other markets in which they are listed. So this just shows you the context of the economy in terms of currency stability, in terms of economic growth, etc. So for SEEDCO International, I think it was a good thing. Why? Because its parent really is a Zimbabwean company. The company really is a Zimbabwean company in essence. So I think coming back to just say, you know, we have grown from this base, but we still want to be part of the Zimbabwe market and to also contribute to the growth of this country by deepening capital markets, etc. I think it was a very wise move. But the structural issues around the economy still remains outstanding, and there may not be a significant value from which itself, as SEEDCO International, will draw from that listing on the VFEX.
Respect Kwenzi, the Equity Access Chief Analyst, giving us a breakdown of the operations of SEEDCO International. Please do check out our next installment as we'll get into a market analysis of the operations of SEEDCO Limited, which is the group. It's a wrap from the Equity Access team, and as far as this show is concerned, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and to visit our informative website www.equityaccess.net. From the Equity Access team and I, Danke, until next time, stay safe.